Today's chapter, today's lesson, we're starting a new topic. I'm just redoing this video. The last video I did had some issues with the PowerPoint. Today's topic, we're looking at insurance. We have two big areas left to cover. One of them is managing a business and household. Under that, we have insurance, tax, and finance. And the other big area we have is management. The last two areas we have for fifth year business. So to get us started on insurance, first thing we're going to look at is risk management. So for risk management, obviously look, there's a visual here. You see an office, and there's about 100 things that could potentially go wrong in this office, from people falling over chairs, people tripping over wires, people spilling hot liquid on electrical equipment, a blocked emergency exit. From an insurance standpoint, it's a complete nightmare. So obviously from any business, you'll have to learn to manage risks, otherwise you face huge losses in terms of personal injury losses, damage to equipment and whatnot. We'll get into that as we go through it. But risk management itself is a planned approach used by businesses and households to deal with risks that can affect them. It involves identifying all possible risks and calculating the cost of protecting themselves against these risks. And that's just risk management itself. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail as to ways to minimize risk. So there's 5 different headings there. Regarding what I'm going to get you to take down for notes, I'll tell you which slides I want you to take down at the very end. But just for this here, ways to minimize risk, there's 5 different headings. Installing security systems. Security risks can be reduced by alarms, cameras, and whatnot. So obviously, especially from a theft standpoint, if you even see there now that the majority of hotels in the country are closed, and a few of them are open for essential reasons, but majority of businesses and hotels and places like that are still employing their security staff. They can't, because of their insurance contract, they're not allowed to not employ security. So you'll find that there's thousands of different factories or different businesses around the country where there is nobody working, there's nobody there, everything's shut down, but the security are still working. You have a security system set up as a way to minimize any potential risk, and from an insurance standpoint, it would be in the contract that there would be manned security on the premises 24/7 and stuff like that. So obviously a way to reduce any potential risk, especially a risk for theft, would be to have cameras and general security working. Training, second one, more often than not, the training would be for the staff. Everyone should be aware of health and safety procedures and what to do in the event of a fire. With that, you'd have appointing a health and safety team, committee, or just a head of safety, so a health and safety officer, appointed in the workplace to report safety issues and conduct regular safety inspections. And even from a school standpoint, the school would have a health and safety committee. Mr. Bishop will be head of that committee. And like any school, obviously from a training standpoint, the teachers would be aware of even for some things, in the event of a fire, that this is the fire drill. There'll be a fire assembly practice done once or twice a year, I'm assuming, just so that everybody's up to speed and everybody has some form of training as to what to do in the event of a fire. Health and safety ensures that the employees are aware of health and safety rules wearing a hard hat in construction site. Obviously, there's certain rules in certain classrooms as well in a school where, handling certain equipment or certain machinery, that there need to be certain steps that will be taken. And the final one here is most of what we'll be looking at for this chapter is insurance cover. So obviously you're having insurance to cover potential losses. So transfer the risk to an insurance firm in return for paying a premium, and we'll get into that. So there are just 5 different headings, just as ways of kind of, giving you a baseline as to how to, answer any question on what ways could a business minimize risk. Definition of insurance, quite simple. It's financial protection against possible loss. And that possible loss is important there. It's something that potentially could happen. and there could be potential damage or loss of income or whatnot. And so insurance is just financial cover against that. Now, there's 5 different principles of insurance, and that's what we're going to focus on now. These 5 different principles are um, well, it's the last thing we'll cover for today, but they're quite important and they're very common questions, especially for even long questions, to go into detail on the principles. So there's 5 of them there. I won't call them out, we're going to go through them individually. First one is insurable interest. So insurable interest means that the insured person must own the item to be insured. They must benefit from its existence and suffer financially from its loss. And that's quite important. This is the most commonly asked principle. Basically, the idea is that in order to get something insured, you need to own it. And not only do you need to own it, you must have some form of benefit from owning the item, and offer, if you were to lose it or damage it, you must suffer in some way financially. So just to give a brief example as to what this principle kind of means. Let's just say I'm selling my house. I'm living in an estate, and I'm trying to sell my house. And across the street, a number of the houses catch fire, and they're completely destroyed, burnt to rubble. I'm trying to sell my house, and now the front window of my house is facing out to a ruins, basically, a pile of rubble, and obviously that's not going to help me. I'm trying to sell my house. My house is worth €400,000. The second those houses across the way get burnt to a crisp, my house is devalued. I'm going to lose value. Nobody really wants to live across the way from a burnt down house or whatnot. But because I don't own those houses across the way, my insurance company or any insurance company will not cover my loss. So I have lost out, financially, from the fire. But because it didn't destroy my house, I can't insure against somebody else's house catching fire. Technically, will I lose money? Yes, but the insurance, can't cover you for somebody else's property. So this is what insurance means. It means that you must own the item and you must benefit from its existence. So not only do you need to own it, you must benefit from its existence and suffer financially from its loss. And your best example there, I'll get you to take down slides later on, but just for now I want you to take down insurable interest. I can insure my own house, so I can insure my own house but not my neighbors, and that's a common it's a common phrase that's used to describe insurable interest. So I must own the item, I must benefit from owning it, and suffer financially if I lose it or damage it. That's our first principle. Second one here is utmost good faith. So utmost good faith means that when you're completing the proposal and claim forms, you must be completely truthful. So if I'm trying to get it, let's say car insurance, I'm trying to sign up for car insurance, I'm contacting, Liberty, I'm contacting Aviva, I'm contacting all these different insurance companies, and I'm filling out what we call a proposal form. So it's basically my application. I need to state as much details as possible and fill in all the different, areas that they want me to fill in the application form, in the proposal form, and I must state everything as truthfully as possible, and I must include as much information and what we call material facts, as much relevant information as possible. So which it may not be asked in the form, but it can affect the premium. So sometimes there are certain things that won't be on the form, but it's up to you to tell the insurance company. So you've general stuff in the form, like if it's health insurance, they'll ask you, are you a smoker? If you were to have any form of, let's say, health concern or health scare, and you ended up in hospital and you're trying to cover the cost with your insurance company, they do have people that go into detail to assess you, even stuff like social media online, and if they find there's photos of you with cigarettes and you claimed that you were not a smoker and now you have some form of let's say lung cancer, the insurance company will not cover your costs because you are not truthful on your form. This can come in so many different ways, and it really comes back to bite people. Even something so simple as I was going to college for many years, and from second year of college onwards, I owned my own car, and I used to drive. I went to UL, so I went up and down to Limerick every week. I used to drive up friends, siblings, cousins, whatnot. Um, you're just as normal, someone's going to college and there's a group of people going in the same car. I wouldn't have rang my insurance company to inform them that I was driving a couple of friends or whatever to college on Sundays and we're going back home on Fridays. It's a normal thing and I wouldn't have thought of it. Had I crashed, thankfully I didn't, had I ever crashed and the insurance company found out that I was driving a couple of people and they were covering the cost of petrol as well and stuff like that, they would not have covered me. Technically, technically, I was operating what they call a taxi service because I was driving people to college, or I was driving people basically, and they were covering the cost, diesel costs or whatever. Um, Technically, it was seen as a form of a business transaction. And because when I signed up for my insurance company, when I signed up with the insurance company, I wasn't telling them that I was running a taxi company. Um, if I did, that would significantly increase my risk and I would have had to pay more. So because I didn't tell them that, technically, had I ended up in an accident, they wouldn't have covered me. Um, so it's just there's so many different things that you wouldn't be aware of, um, and they're not going to ask you on the form, do you drive your friends up and down to college on a week-to-week basis? But something like that is a material fact. Just another example, let's say I live across the way from the school. I teach in the school, and most of my driving is spent, driving 1 minute across from my house to the school to go to work, and maybe 2 minutes down the road just to drive to Super Value. If I tell the insurance company that that's where I work, I rarely drive. I'm not seen as a risky customer because I'm not spending that long on the road every single week. They don't think I'm risky, therefore my premium, the amount I'll have to pay for insurance, will probably be low. Now, if I quit my job and I start my own company and now I start doing deliveries up and down the country and I'm up and down to Dublin every couple of days, I'm a completely different customer now. I was once driving a couple of minutes around the town to go to work or to go to the shops. Now I'm driving hours and hours every single day. So I'd have to pay much more for my insurance. And if I don't ring my insurance company to tell them that I've changed jobs and now I'm doing deliveries, for my company, then if I end up in an accident and they find out what I was really doing, they won't cover me. Why? Because I wasn't telling them the truth. According to me, I was a teacher and I didn't inform them that I changed my job. So there's so many thousands of cases every single year where people are caught for this principle because they didn't inform the insurance company of all material facts. And this can change on a week-to-week basis. Um, Principle number 3 is indemnity. The rest of them are a little bit shorter. So indemnity means you cannot profit from insurance, and that's quite simply most of what it means. So you cannot be better off after a loss has occurred than you were before the loss happened. So again, there's a photo there. The house is being flooded. If there's €3,000 worth of damage in the house and you have fully insured your house, you can get up to €3,000 worth of damages. They're not going to pay beyond the damages that they've assessed. If you crash your car before when you're signing up for insurance, they'll ask you for a valuation of the car, or they'll value the car themselves. When the car is potentially, if the car was to be crashed and destroyed, they're not going to pay more than what the car was originally valued. You can't profit. If your house is worth €200,000 and it's burnt to the ground, you will not get any penny more than that. So you can't profit from insurance. The fourth principle here is contribution. So it's used when a household or business insures an item with 2 or more insurance firms. It might occur if an individual or business tries to make a profit from insurance by claiming from each insurance firm. Any compensation payable will be divided between them in proportion to how much you insured them with. So what I'm talking about here is, let's say I run a pub and you know, things aren't going well, and I decide to be sneaky. I'm going to sign up with 5 different insurance companies. There's going to be a quote unquote accident, and the pub's going to get burnt to the ground. And I'm going to try to go to all 5 insurance companies and claim insurance for fire damage. And this is what we call contribution. So the insurance companies work together. And when they find out that I've insured my business with more than one insurance company, they divide up the compensation. If it was actually an accident, they'll divide up the compensation between them. In other words, if I have €10,000 worth of damage to my car and I have insured it with 3 different car insurance companies, I'll only get my 10,000. The 3 companies will divide it between them depending on how much I paid for each insurance. And this goes back to our previous principle: you can't profit off insurance. So I'm not allowed to get car insurance with 10 different companies, then crash my car and try to claim 10 grand off all 10 companies and make a profit. So when you've insured with more than one insurance firm, if I do suffer a loss, the compensation is divided between the companies, and they pay in proportion to the value insured with each of them. So if I pay more to Liberty, they'll pay more of the damages than, let's say, Aviva or somebody else. Finally, subrogation. So subrogation is our final principle. It states that once you've received compensation, you give up your right to make any further claims. The insurance firm can pursue the business or individual that caused the damage for compensation. So what we're really looking at here is, you know, there's an example here where the car is damaged. You know, you have the front lights, tail lights are probably, or the headlights are damaged, bonnet is damaged, bumper is damaged, the wing of the car looks to be damaged. You know, the car doesn't look like it's worth that much. So I'm guessing to replace all of those parts, it could probably cost similar to the value of the car. What happens? We call it a write-off. So the insurance company essentially says, we're going to write off the car. If the car was worth €1,000, they'll give you the €1,000. But then they take the car. Once you've received the compensation, you give up the right to make any further claims, and the car now belongs to the insurance company. So the insurance company can then obviously do with what they wished, and they would have their own setup for whatever, selling parts or selling the car to scrapyard. Let's say another example, you know, let's say for phone insurance, many people who get phone insurance, they lose their phone at a concert. They can answer the insurance company. You know, they tell them what happened. The insurance company decides to cover the cost, and you know, they send you a check for the value of the phone, and you go off and you buy your new phone. Suddenly, somebody from the concert gets in touch with you to say that they found the phone. You've already received your compensation, so you give up the right to ownership of that mobile. So the phone that you've now found, the phone that whoever the steward working the concert has found, that now belongs to the insurance company, and that's now theirs. Because they've given you the compensation, you give up any further right of ownership of that item or to make any further claims. And that's our 5th principle for insurance. Regarding what I want you to take down, the start of this chapter has a lot of quite important theory. So to be honest, you'll be taking down most of it. So slide number 2, I'll get you to take down what is risk management, as kind of just a way of explaining what risk management is. For ways to minimize risk, you can take down the left headings there, the left side, the 5 different headings. So for ways to minimize risk, insurance, I'm going to get you to take down that 1-line definition: financial protection against financial loss. You don't need to take this slide down, but I'll get you to take down the remaining 5. So there's a slide for each of the principles. I'll get you to take down each of those slides, and make sure to have written down as well that for insurable interest, you can insure your own house but not your neighbours, as a general explanation. And we will have our next lesson during the week.